Do you remember when you first met this character? Whether it was this,
No disintegrations.
As you wish.
this,
And we'll have a couple of surprises for him.
or even this. Regardless of when you met Boba Fett, I'd bet that he left an impression on you. He's become one of the most iconic figures in the entire Star Wars saga. Literally, he's become an iconic figure. But initially, we never would have guessed that he'd play much of a role beyond some extra marketing, or as that guy that ensured Han Solo got frozen into carbonite. But with his recent reintroduction into The Mandalorian, all of that changed. In order to understand why this comeback works so well, however, we must first dive back into the past, at the beginning of Boba Fett's story. That's right, we begin in the iconic 2002 LucasArts video game, Star Wars Bounty Hunter. While it may not be considered canon per se, this piece of Legends material remains a fine addition to Boba Fett's lore. As a nutshell summary, the game plunges you into the boots of renowned bounty hunter Jango Fett, right before the events of Attack of the Clones. He's getting by with basic bounty hunting work, but suddenly a mission of more substantial value is offered to him. Offered by none other than Count Dooku. The mission is quite simple on a surface level. Be the first and only bounty hunter to take out former and fallen Jedi Kamari Vosa. Vosa was the old Padawan of the Count, who was viewed by Darth Sidious as a viable threat to his cause. Spoiler alert to anybody who hasn't followed Star Wars in the last 18 years, Jango Fett wins. That said, however, he does not take the killing blow.
Which will it be, bounty hunter? Dead or alive? He is here.
Instead, it is Count Dooku, who in a very ruthless Jedi Fallen Order fashion, force chokes his former apprentice. Upon this shocking conclusion, Dooku then reveals to Jango that this whole hunt was not just a high-stakes competition, but rather an opportunity for his master Darth Sidious to find the candidate most suitable for the cloning operation on Kamino.
I was recruited by a man called Tyrannus on one of the moons of Bogdan. Curious.
It's beyond mere credits. It's for legacy. Or so this is the way Dooku presents it to Jango as a good elevator pitch. But really, the dramatic irony here is that all they needed was an individual to clone who would be able to take down a Jedi single-handedly. And we all know why that was the case.
Execute Order 66.
Jango agrees, but he has only one request.
I'll accept your offer, Tyrannus, on one condition.
And that is?
I want the first clone for myself, unmodified.
Might I inquire as to why?
You might.
Very well. Consider it done. We have a deal then, Jango Fett.
Deal.
Thus, following the ending of Bounty Hunter, Boba Fett, Jango's first and only son, is born. The first clone ever. It's this moment that shapes the future of Boba's entire story. He's the son of a Fett, and thus forever a Mandalorian. In order to truly connect the dots, though, we must then move into Attack of the Clones. As we all know from this installment of the saga, Boba's story is a far stretch from happy. He grew up constantly within harm's way under his father's wing, in fear of losing his dad around every corner. And being a clone, his father was the only piece of family he had, aside from the name and epic ship Slave One. And tragically, these would end up being the only things, along with the armor, that Boba would be able to hold on to by the end of this film. Brutal, right? It's this moment that Boba's storyline begins to manipulate away from purely family. It changes from merely following in his father's footsteps to now avenging his death. And throughout his entire young life, any encounter Boba Fett has had with the Jedi is of them attempting to kill him. A twisted view on the ancient creed, but without the proper knowledge of this and without truly getting to know a Sith yet, Boba commits his life to one cause: killing the Jedi, even if it means selling his life to the will and beckoning call of the Sith. It's a story that, quite frankly, mirrors Anakin Skywalker's, a character who also lost his only parent and gained a taste for vengeance following Attack of the Clones. And much like Anakin did, Fett continued to be manipulated through the original trilogy. Which is exactly where we end up with our introduction to the character in The Empire Strikes Back. When we see Boba on screen, he immediately has a presence that screams fearlessness. He holds himself to a degree that knows he will get the job done, and at any cost. But in these efforts, he's also under Vader's thumb every step of the way. Fett has merely become a tool for the Sith's manipulated interests again, like his father before him. Nobody has cared about him in the Empire, and nobody truly cared about him in the Separatist Alliance. All they figured the Fetts for were pawns. There was no place for him after this, except in the wretched confines of the Hutt Palace, where he ultimately meets a very anticlimactic end. Or so we thought. And thank the Maker that his story did not end in the digestive tract of a Sarlacc pit. Because by ending his story there, after all this prior development, his character arc would have been close to non-existent. But by bringing Boba Fett back, he becomes more than just a plot device. And executing his return in the way that the creative team behind The Mandalorian have, we open the doors for a whole new chapter, a reimagining of the character we know and love. He's brutal, yet protective, devoted, but not blind. Still a viable threat to our heroes, but much more controlled and grounded in who he is, what he's become. All that matters to him now is family. Din Djarin asks if he's taken the Mandalorian creed upon meeting him, but Boba's commitment to Mandalore rests in something much deeper than religion.
I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe.
I'm a simple man making his way through the galaxy, like my father before me.
The Mandalore Code rests in his legacy and blood. Boba Fett cements this by showing Din his chain code, displaying that yes, he is a Mandalorian. This beautifully carries us into the episode, The Believer, because we now know that Din is forging that same kind of connection to his creed through his love for Grogu. He's beginning to leave past relics and profession behind in order to seek a future, have something better, something he, much like Boba Fett, hasn't had since a child. Real family. This is why Din takes his helmet off, risks everything he has to save Grogu. Because he is his family. And Boba, without a doubt, witnessed this connection, a connection much like his own father and him had, which, looking back to the tragedy episode, is exactly why Boba Fett agreed to help get the child back. When he says he's been tracking the Mandalorian too, we know that means Boba's witnessed just as much, if not even more, of Din and Grogu's relationship from the shadows than we have. He knows who Din truly is, and because of this, he will ensure the survival of this bond, and this will occur through a true redemption arc. An arc in which I'm quite certain, whether it be the finale of Season 2 or later, in which Boba Fett will give his life to save Grogu and Din's. Not only will he do this, but he will also share his knowledge of cloning, perhaps with a visit back to his old home on Kamino. This will help evolve the story of whatever Gideon and Pershing are utilizing the child to experiment on. And Boba Fett will undoubtedly pass on his legacy by giving the keys of Slave One over to our heroes. Thus, a man that once hated the Jedi, made it his life mission to kill them, will now become the very individual that ensures they live on. This is why Boba Fett will have one of, if not arguably the best arc in The Mandalorian. He's no longer just a cool action figure on our shelves. He has an arc with layered emotional depth. He's the character we all grew up with, but better, whether from Empire in 1980 or with Attack of the Clones in 2002. We're so lucky to actually see how his story will ultimately end. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know and subscribe. If not, I'd love to hear feedback below. Till next time, thank you, and may the Force be with you, always.